USS Laffey, the ship that would not die. This is a solitaire roll and write word game. Those words, solitaire, roll and write word games, I don't hear them together often enough. So I was really happy when this game was gonna do that. Was gonna give me those three elements that I like so much and giving them all in one package. So here we have a roll and write. So it's a war game. You will try to help to defend the Laffey that in World War II survived a massive attacks from kamikaze airplanes, from kamikaze attacks in World War II in the Pacific, of course. And that's what you are going to do. You're going to try to survive. There will be a number of airplanes that will attack you, represented by that display there. We'll look at that more in detail in a little while. If you're able to survive, to go through all of those attacks without sinking or without taking too much damage, you win the game. The ship is divided into sectors. If you lose this sector entirely, it is completely destroyed. All the areas in it have been marked in pencil, you lose the game. Also, if any two other sectors are destroyed, you lose the game. So that's the overall general idea, how you win, how you lose. The game comes in this pretty thin box here, so thin that the game doesn't fit in it, because the main body of the game is made of these two pads, each showing each sheet on each pad showing half of the board. In order to play the game, you'll need a sheet from each pad to form the board that you see here. Matter of fact, the rulebook recommends that you simply put the two pads next to each other and you play that way. The way I prefer is I take a sheet from each pad and then I put a little bit of tape on the back, and so I have my board here with me. But again, the box is so thin that when I got the game, basically there was one pad outside of the box, shrink wrapped with the box itself, and there's no way it fits in it. So you'll be able to fit the game inside its box only after a while that you play, which is kind of unusual. So we get the two pads, we get some cubes that we use to mark different things, we get a bunch of dice, they're all 10-sided dice, and there is a red one, some yellow ones, and then some color pencils here. The turn has several phases, can be a little bit elaborate, but around the main area we have a really nice play area, and simply starting from there and going through all of these sections here that will remind us of all the things that we can do or that we have to do, and then we start over until either all of these things have been destroyed or they attacked you but you're still out there, or until the ship is destroyed. Looking at the ship more in detail, you will see, as I announced earlier, that it is divided into different sectors, and there is a left half and a right section, of course, and there are numbers. So say there is a 9 here in aft, and then there is a 9 section also on the other half, which is the bridge, and we have a 4 here and a 4 there, for example. Each sector has 8 little bubbles or boxes or circles, and as we take damage, we'll fill them in. There are different kinds of damage. Fire, for example, will be represented in red. I don't know if you can see that. I myself can barely see. If we got a leak, water starts coming in, that is represented in blue, just like so. And the debris, that is represented in black and you need to use a pen, which is not included with the set. I hope you have one at home. Also, once you take damage, it stays there. And debris just is like that. It's damage, so it has reduced the capability of your ship, but doesn't have any further effect. As opposed to leaks and fire, they tend to spread. Fire will spread up, so trying to moving to higher sectors, and the other way around is of course for water that goes to the sides or down if possible. So when you repair these two kinds of damage, water or fire, what happens is you basically downgrade the damage to debris. So to put out a fire means that you turn that fire into debris, but it's still a damage. Once things are damaged, there's no way to undamage them. Also, certain kinds of damage will cause explosions, which simply means that you will put debris in all areas adjacent to the area that just exploded, like so, if that area, for example, had exploded. Now, our enemies are the Japanese, or enemies represented by this line here, or circle, this track of enemy airplanes. The game can be played in different variants. There's one in which you will roll a die to determine the initial airplane. So suppose that we start from there and then we'll be attacked in that order. There's an historical game in which you start from here, different variants. And so let's say that we're starting from here, for example. We roll the die and this is the first airplane that will attack us, and we mark that way. Another thing that's important, we have supplies represented by that die, and again, the starting number may be 1, maybe more, it depends on the variant that you're playing, on the level of difficulty. So, and we also have two groups of damage control people that will run around like crazy, doing different things. Phase 1 of a turn, you assign these two teams to do different things on the board, and where you assign them to these blue boxes here, and depending on where you place them, then they can do different things. For example, if I place one of them here, you see there is a little lock there with the number 4. You can see there. Then I can take one of these dice that I will roll in a later phase. I can already lock it to a number 4. As you can imagine, trust me on this one, that's a good thing. If I place a cube there, it means that sector cannot be damaged. If I place a cube there, I can repair leaks. Here I can stop fire. This is a very important action that actually you will want to take very, very often. When you place a cube there, you get to mark 2 spaces in the clear sky boxes. Here there are 3 sectors on this other part of the board where you will be marking these spaces here to acquire different kinds of advantages. And so if I took the action I just showed you, I placed the cube there, where you remember there was a symbol of 2, or 2 symbols like this one, then I'm marking 2 stars like that. When I fill in one of these boxes, I immediately gain the corresponding advantage. For example, if I fill all of the spaces in this box here, I mark that I fill that box entirely and I gain the advantage. Later, maybe I do this and I gain that advantage again. So to get the clear skies advantage, it takes me 3 ticks or clicks at the beginning of the game. It becomes more expensive later. And when you get the clear skies advantage, you do not have to roll for enemy attack. You have a round in which they don't attack. If I use different effects to mark these areas here, for example, by marking a simple click there, then I gain the supplies advantage, which is to increase my amount of supplies by 1, just like so. Same thing, it'll take longer. If I am calling the Wildcats, every time I fill one of these boxes and I use the corresponding advantage, then I can immediately destroy one of the enemy airplanes that would otherwise be attacking me. So, what I'm doing again at the beginning of the turn, I place my 2 crews in locations that make sense. They may give me immediate advantages. They may lock dice to specific numbers. Also, I can then spend supplies. I can spend supplies to repair damage in the area where I placed them. Suppose that there was fire here, then I place one there, I spend supplies, and I immediately repair that damage automatically. Next, they attack. The next enemy in line going clockwise will attack me. That means that this round, this enemy will attack me. After I resolve that, then the next turn, I know that one will attack me. And after resolve that, the following turn, that one will attack me. So you simply will look at the icon of the enemy airplane that is the first one that has not attacked you yet. And that tells you 2 things. First, the direction. If it's facing this way, then it will attack an area on the right side of your ship, on the right sheet of the notepad, or on the right notepad. If it's facing this way, well, it will be on this other section of the ship. Also, I will then roll a die to determine the area that is being attacked. For example, say I rolled a 5, and this is where I'm at right now. It's facing that way, so now I know that this is the sector that will be destroyed, that will be attacked, Then the icons on the aircraft itself tell me the kind of damage that I need to apply there. I need to apply that from left to right, and I need to spread damage as evenly as possible between the target sector and sectors adjacent to it. For example, here I know that there is a debris, and so I place it there. The next one is an explosion. When there's an explosion, remember, it spills over to adjacent sectors. I think those two are adjacent. At least that's how I played them. And here, and then the third one there was a water damage, and I'm gonna put the water damage again. I had to place it in an adjacent area because as evenly as possible, and so I'm gonna place the water damage right here. So just going back there, that's how it worked. I looked at the airplane here, at the aircraft here, and I applied debris, explosion, and then water, just like that. Now, there are ways for you to damage airplanes that will attack you later, and basically a trick or a very valid strategy is to try to spread out things as much as possible. Suppose that through game effects, I damage these airplanes just so. Then next turn, when I'm resolving my attack, I only have to worry about that. The following round, I only have to worry about those 2 attacks. So basically, when you will, I'll tell you in a little bit, how you attack airplanes, how you inflict those damage. It just seems to be a lot more advantageous to spread out as much as possible, so they cause a little bit of damage, and then you fix it, rather than to destroy an enemy entirely, and then the following round, they cause you a lot of damage that you have to deal with. So, back to us, that's how they attack you, and then you get a chance of dealing with that. So, after they attack you, you roll your dice to generate actions. You roll these dice. Some you may not have to roll because they may be locked on specific numbers if you use corresponding actions in the previous phase. You roll them, and then you get to save any that you want, and then you have up to 2 rerolls. You will want to reroll high results because all results between 1 and 5 are good for you. 6 doesn't do anything. Usually there are effects that may turn it into annoying, and 7 and higher are actually negative effects for you. And so you just roll and then re-roll. And in this case, for example, this is a particularly unlucky roll. It may just be the single most unlucky roll I've ever had, because with half of the results being good and half bad, but you have 3 re-rolls, usually I get everything good or maybe 1 or 2 negative results. But that's what may happen. Just for the sake of the example, though, suppose that these are the results, so you can see some of the other things that happen. Basically, once I have my results, I place them in order from lower to higher. And then, oh, look at that now, that's a nice spread. And I simply resolve them. And up there, I have a reminder of what these actions do. For example, the bridge action counts as a wild. I can use it as another result, or I can also use it to mark boxes in these sections here. Remember, they will allow me to buy different advantages. 2 allows me to put out a fire. 3 allows me to stop a leak. That is, again, to turn a water damage into normal debris. 4 is how I attack the enemies. That's why if I place one of my dice here in the magazine ammunition or in another area on the other side, I'm basically causing damage to them. So for each 4, I get to check a box in the next airplane that would attack me, and that's how you weaken them, which again is the best thing. Not to destroy them right away, but to weaken them. 5 is sort of like the long-range gun, so if I have a fight that I can resolve, I get to place those 5 hits anywhere on the future ones, as long as I choose just 2 that are adjacent to each other. Suppose that I had 3 5s, then I could assign them, I would probably want to do 1, 2, and 3, something like that. As long as you can assign the 5s on 2 adjacent aircraft, but anywhere on the display. 6 doesn't do anything, 7 and 8 is leak, 9 is fire, and 10 is explosion, and that's how you get some extra things there. After you resolve the dice, you will have to go through possibly through annoying phases. One is when the leak spreads. The leaks spread by, giving you more leaks. When the fire spreads, generating more fire. Again, that would be when, say, for example, fire from here moves here, or water from here would move here, and so on and so forth. And then that's the end of a round. And if you haven't lost yet, you will repeat. Now, and that's the way it goes. Now, it seems like a lot of steps. Oh, actually, something I forgot to mention. After you roll the die to determine the sector that is damaged, and you apply that damage, you also place a die there that will generate a specific negative effect. And so, for example, if it's placed there, then I lose a die. If it's placed there, I have to lock a die on 0, which means 10, which means explosion, and so on and so forth. But although it looks like it's a lot of steps, summarizing, it's really not that bad at all. You assign your damage control teams and possibly resolve actions right away. That's what the actions you selected do. Some other actions, they give you different kinds of advantages. Roll to determine there is an attack, which may not be the case if you bought the clear skies advantage, and you will do that as often as possible. Then you don't have to worry about that. But if you do have to roll for enemy attack, remember that's how you do it. Roll your own dice up to 3 times, resolve those effects, resolve possible extra leaks and extra fires, and you repeat until either you sink or you survive. And chances are you'll survive. I played the game in different levels of difficulty. I haven't played like the super mega difficult, which is with only 1 die, but I tried the one next to it, and I was able to win without much trouble. It seems to me that the game can be solved to an extent. Now, of course, there is massive randomness, but also not, because it gets to the point where you're going to roll so many dice, so many times, that you're always going to have some crazy rolls, so crazy good, crazy bad, but overall things tend to average. And it's just that the first round or 2 may be pretty tense, actually, because you start with some damage right there. But then after a while, you will stop that first damage. You will probably, you don't have to, but if you want to win, you will have somebody sitting here for as often as possible, and somebody giving you supplies also for as often as possible. And once you have that at the maximum, this guy stays here as much as possible. At that point, you're gonna place this one here on the bridge that gives you wild as often as possible. Can't have it there every round, but everything else you can add every round. And especially again early on, if you just have a guy sitting here, it means you're gonna get a clear sky every other turn, because that damage control queue gives you 2 ticks. It takes 3 to get a clear sky. And that makes it pretty easy, meaning that early on in the game, you're gonna stop without too much trouble the initial damage, unless bar some really unlucky rolls all in the first couple of rounds. So once you stop the initial damage, and then you take the clear skies, and when you have the clear skies, then you can work on building your supplies and start inflicting damage on these guys. That means when you don't have clear skies, or in between clear skies turns, when they attack, they give you maybe 1 or 2 damages. Maybe you manage to destroy all of their attacking icons with the exception of the debris. Okay, boom, they place a debris there. And that's just the way it is. Pretty much I told you what seems to me to be the dominant strategy. I was basically a little bit disappointed. I was so excited because, again, I like the roll and write mechanic. I like solitaire games and solitaire war games. It seems to be a roll and write war game that I play by myself. Like, awesome. The execution is just a little bit underwhelming because, again, I was happy that I learned about a historical topic that I didn't know, and so I learned something. And I think the overall narrative is still interesting, but it just didn't rise to the levels of tension that I was expecting. Of course, to me, everything looks a little bit like B-17, Queen of the Skies. That's just my own, observational bias. Everything I look at, I'm wondering, somehow it reminds me of B-17. And when I think about damage management and solitaire war games and World War II, of course that comes to mind. And that's the golden standard to me of solitaire war gaming. And well, it doesn't have to be B-17, but I wouldn't mind if it was. And just it did not have the level of tension. It felt fairly easy to master. And you know what? If I had a couple of incredibly unlucky die rolls and I lost early on or even halfway through, I just wouldn't get that excitement. Oh my gosh, I want to play again because I want to try something different. I want to try another strategy. Because even if I lose because of unfortunate die rolls, I just don't feel that there is a killer strategy that I overlooked, I can implement better. It is just that these icons here, these decisions, they're not all equally good. There are just some that are obviously a lot better than others. And that means that you just don't make a lot of decisions. This guy's gonna stay here just for as often as possible, for as long as possible. This guy here cannot be there every turn. It'll be there every other turn. Early on, basically, my strategy has been to place this guy there and this guy here until I gain maximum supplies, and then just stay there, and or when there's a clear sky turn, go there collecting 4s and collecting more 4s to spread damage to later aircraft, and then back there. So one thing is that the game just, since not all of the possible, the main actions really, what are the actions that you're going to take? You're rolling dice and choosing what to roll and not what to re-roll, which is pretty obvious. If there is a number that is higher than 6, I'm going to re-roll this. Again, there isn't that tension. Oh my gosh, what happens if I re-roll? There's no reason not to re-roll a bad result, which makes the decision trivial. And then the other decisions that you have on the board is where to place these guys, which again, it's usually pretty obvious. Something terrible is happening, they run there to pour supplies on the thing. You did your job well, weakening airplanes as they come in. They won't have much to do, so they'll just keep building, future advantages and weakening future aircraft. So it's not just that the game feels fairly easy to me. Again, that what has limited my experience, what has limited my enjoyment is that there aren't many decisions that feel all that interesting and exciting. So, USS Laffey, I think there's great potential in this idea. I just don't think in this game specifically it has been implemented to its full potential. I wish that the game was harder, and I could do that by coming up with my own variants, but most importantly, I wish it had more relevant, interesting decisions, and it doesn't. I wish it had maybe more chrome and more detail, more saying, the human toll, the narrative. I wish that the narrative was a little more granular, but just it didn't happen. So it has enough layers that you can see the theme, but not quite to the point that the theme jumps out of the game in a way that is vivid enough to keep me excited. So USS Laffey, I'll go with, is not bad. Honestly, the first game or two, when I was still figuring out what the strategy was, I was even entertained. After a while, I realized that there were strategies that seemed to be obviously better than others. and so the game kind of plateaued a little bit. It seems to me that there is potential with the system. I hope to see different games and more games in this system in the future. I just don't think that this game showcases what solitaire roll and write war games can do. I don't think it showcases at its best. I don't think that the potential or the general idea has been quite reached here.